Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of the Players NIL podcast. I have a very interesting guest today, someone that comes from a space that we have not had on this podcast. I want to welcome and thank Kurt Roth for being on the broadcast. Kurt, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, great, Mark. Thanks for having me. I'm excited about it.
Well, Kurt, we understand that name, image, and likeness has created all kinds of opportunities for athletes, but it's created opportunities for businesses. You are the managing partner of Dickler and Roth, a real estate firm in New York City. You're an attorney, but you're also the founder of 505 Sport Ventures, a non-for-profit collective associated with a very important school in your life. So let's hear a little bit about why you started it, why you're passionate about New Mexico, and how you got into this.
Okay, well, great. Thanks. I can talk about this for hours because it is a passion. I graduated from the University of New Mexico back in 1977. So literally I hit the ground as a freshman just over 50 years ago. When I got out there, we were in the midst of a pretty cool run in men's basketball. I left New York City, where the Knicks, believe it or not, were the dominant team in the NBA. I know that's hard to understand. 2 championships in 4 years, Willis Reed, Walt Frazier, et cetera, got to UNM in 1973-74. Now you have to understand, we jumped into the pit, which is still one of the iconic arenas. It was 6 years old when I got there. We were playing teams like UTEP, Arizona, Arizona State, BYU were in our conference. And the first year I got there in a sold-out pit, we won the championship, led by a kid from Brooklyn, Bernard Harden. I was hooked. I was a baller in New York, but not at anywhere near that level. So I became, invested. As at UNM, my 4 years were a great experience. I got the best education possible. And it cost my family, who paid for my education, less than $3,000 without a scholarship, without any aid. So I didn't know it, but I was determined, somewhere in my brain, I was determined to give it back. We flash ahead to the mid-90s. I'm a lawyer, and I start to travel out to UNM because Kenny Thomas has come on campus, and the Lobos were ranked for 4 years in a row, playing big games. And I flew out and said, I want to go to a game, and then got involved with the booster clubs in the 90s. So it's been 30 plus years now. And I saw a way as we moved toward, as a lawyer, I also have a background. I was a certified NBA agent. I represented about 6 minor league ball players. We never got one into the NBA. Great educational experience. And for those who think agents make a lot of money, 1% do, the rest don't make any money. And I saw, as a lawyer, a contract lawyer here in New York, I followed all of the NCPA litigation through the federal court. I had a good friend who was a supporter. And I realized what was going on, and I'd had a bone to pick with the NCAA always. When years ago a kid got suspended for getting a dinner from a booster, and he is basically, his mom was homeless, and he was a scholarship athlete with no money, and he got suspended by the NCAA. So I realized what a farce that was. And I was determined to see if I could help to change it. Now, I watched the litigation go through the court, and when I saw the Supreme Court, NCAA Alston case, and then what happened immediately after with the codification at the state levels, I realized that the NCAA restriction or fake amateurism was dead. And I wanted to help, and I wanted to help the University of New Mexico. And as I move into my 70s, it was a great time to kind of retire, get into Albuquerque full time. And pretty much, although I'm in my New York office today for a couple of days, I'll be back in Albuquerque tonight. I made it basically what some might call a retirement job.
Great. Well, it's a great explanation. For the record, I'm a Long Island guy, a little bit younger than you, but for me, it was Dr. J and the Nets. I used to sneak into the Nassau Coliseum, and for me, he was a god.
Well, it's funny you say that. I saw the Nets play in Long Island Arena in Comac. I go back to Laverne Tart and Johnny Roach from South Carolina and Bob Lloyd from Rutgers and the New York Nets.
Yeah. So we could talk about that all day long, but I want to get to what you're doing now. 505 Sports Ventures, a 501c collective associated with the University of New Mexico. Why did you go 501c? What were your decisions around that?
Well, we're a 501c4, so we are not a charitable organization. Our goal was to create financial opportunities for student athletes. I had a strong background. I practice regularly still in New York with churches, New York City churches, and they're generally 501c3s. They're charitable. When I looked at our goal and what our purpose was, I had personal difficulty reconciling that with the 501c3 rules. I studied, I was determined to try to pigeonhole the thing in somehow. I watched other schools get approved, and I didn't like it. It didn't sit well with me that it was a charitable organization when, we started to see, especially in the SEC schools, some of the numbers that were being bandied about. In June of last year, the IRS wrote a 14-page recommendation letter that said, forget it. These aren't 501c3s. Now, the IRS has a weird process. There's the front door that if you submit a good form, they approve it, no matter what craziness you're putting through. The rubber hits the road when you file your returns or annual reports. And I was grateful that I didn't tell donors that they would have a tax deduction. And I didn't want to think of the nightmare that if the IRS ruled against our filing 2 years later. So we went in as a community organization. We're a nonprofit, registered with the state of New Mexico as a nonprofit, but that makes it a little more challenging because people who contribute individually don't have that charitable deduction. So getting to a point that we had talked about before, it's really incumbent on us and collectives in our situation to work with the business community, because this is then marketing for them. As you guys are trying to get the message to these kids on an individual level, we're trying to do it on a collective level. This is economic growth within the city of Albuquerque and the state of New Mexico. So we look for those corporations and businesses in town, and we've already done well. We just need to expand it and get the idea across when the UNM athletics is the front door to, maybe the state of New Mexico. The pit is iconic. We've sold it out, and the economy grows when the UNM teams. We don't have pro teams here. We don't. We have a minor league baseball team. We have a minor league soccer team, and they're popular. But you fly the flag of New Mexico with the Lobos. And at some extent, our cousins down south, New Mexico State, but they're doing okay on their own, all things considered.
Well, thank you for making that distinction. I think it's very important, 501c3 versus 4, and I think our audience will really appreciate that. So July 2021, NIL is authorized. You've already been involved for 30 years. You have already known the power of influence that alums and donors can have. Now the floodgates open. What were some of the early challenges, though, as you started to formulate this process, build this organization?
Well, the big challenge is you're asking for money. That's always a challenge. The second challenge is educating, and we're still at that. And I'm doing a presentation for the UNM alumni on Monday and trying to get around it. It's just name, image, and likeness. This is a thing that's just a term of art, but basically that amateurism is a farce, and the kids can get compensated. So it's education on a couple of points. One, yes, it's about money. Two, we're not stealing money from the university. This goes directly to the students. So there was that kind of conflict between the booster clubs, and it happens across the country. Are you taking our money? And in a sense, there is a certain amount of money available. New Mexico has more challenges than, say, University of Texas. University of Texas is a hedge fund that has a campus. So we have those challenges. So I guess overall, the major challenge is education. How does this work? And the university was cautious at first, but have become basically full supportive partners at present. And that was an issue. That was an issue. Administrators are different than entrepreneurs. People who you may manage a $25 million, $80 million budget at an athletic department, but it's not your money. Starting a nonprofit that's goal is to raise money and pay kids is an entrepreneurial deal. And especially there was no history. That was one of the things that was really attractive to me. As I hit 70 years old and been a sports guy and an agent and a contract guy, a whole new frontier opened. And I said, oh, I get this. Let's go. So it's that part, these kind of talks, the educational process. I come from a family of teachers, is fun and it's exciting, but it's still, the bottom line is it's education still.
I agree totally. As I mentioned in our preamble, our company delivers education to athletes, coaches, local business administrators. And we too are trying to teach what is NIL, right? Because the news has distorted it and made it University of Texas story, Ohio State, Alabama. This is no disrespect to the University of New Mexico, but Ohio State's budget is probably slightly larger, right? And so, but that's what the news picks up on, right? They don't realize the real opportunities, and the majority of kids that go to the University of New Mexico that have opportunities. We have two principles in our business, Kurt. The first one is, how do you use athletics to better your life, right? And those college athletes are doing that, and good for them. I was a college athlete. I get it. The second one is, how do you use athletics to better the lives of the people around you? And I think, that's what NIL has created, is opportunities for administrators such as yourself, educators such as myself, and even student athletes themselves to get involved with charitable foundational work in the community and give back and share while building their brand. What are some of the activities that 505 Sport Ventures Foundation engages with the athletes in your local community? Tell me what you're doing. Tell me what you're doing on the ground.
Well, we look closely. We've done, I have a internal partner, Sobel Solutions, which is a group of local Albuquerque guys, young guys who know all this high-tech internet stuff. You want to see what I believe is the best collective NIL website or page. It's on Instagram. It's 505 SVF. No one does the work we do. So we promote the kids online. We are constantly looking for opportunities. We did a couple of events with UNM Lobothon, which is an internal cancer fund. We just did some readings at schools. We did a backpack drive in the fall, which was incredibly successful. So it's both seeking opportunities in the community. And when we interview a student athlete that we sign to a contract, and we have signed contracts with zero pay, okay? We have signed contracts for large amounts of money, and we have signed contracts for zero where we agree to promote the student and do sort of along the lines that you guys want to do. And we interview every signed kid, every signed student athlete. And one of the questions is, do you have a charity that's near and dear to you? Do you have a situation? One of our best events was this backpack drive. We had a guy named a kid on the football team, humble, kid, Deuce Jones, who came to us with the idea. He was almost timid in his approach. He grew up in a one-parent home, and him and his siblings went to school. And the first day of school was horrendously embarrassing because they didn't have supplies. And when he made D1, his sister told him, "You got to give back, Deuce." And so our staff organized with his help. We gave away 90 loaded backpacks with school supplies at a middle school. We had like 6 football guys show up. It was off the charts. And it was, that's the power right there. But we asked the kids, do you have, and it's amazing. Most of these guys, we just signed up 20 new football players. They all want to work with kids. They all want to work with kids. We so far we have very few prima donnas who look at us like this is a chore. These athletes, men and women, I also want to make a plug for us. We have an NIL deal with every women's basketball player at UNM. We have women's softball players. My next goal is the women's soccer team, which is one of my favorites of all time. But that's the community stuff we need at that level, which is what you guys are doing. But it's incredibly, it's rewarding. You're sitting there watching these 18, 19, 20-year-olds give back, and it's really heartwarming.
That's a great story, and it's using athletics to better the lives of the people around you. So it's right up, my passion and what we do. Let's look in the future a little bit. Last line of questioning. You got 3-pronged stool. You got collectives, you got universities, and you've got that 4-letter word, the NCAA. Where are we going? What's the future look like?
I wish I could add a real crystal ball, but the future is absent the NCAA. They've played themselves into the, and I've been complaining or mentioning this forever. I watched this happen as a young guy with the Major League Baseball owners, and each major league just went down the same path. They wouldn't negotiate. And now, you got guys making $500 million playing baseball. NCAA had the guidebook in front of them, and they just punted. I think they're done. I also don't know it's hard for me to really imagine a long range, and I'm talking 5-10 years, because none of this stuff happens quickly, that the collectives will become obsolete. They're going to be in-house. There's no doubt about it to me. They can be in-house for numerous reasons. One of them may be, the 501c3 issue. I was surprised, just to go back, a couple of liberal senators rushed to propose legislation when this first started that collectives couldn't be 501c3s. That thing died right away. There's no consensus in Washington, and that's why this will take a while. But the bottom line is, the student athletes, especially in the money-making sports, should have collective bargaining power. And, big deal. EA says, we're going to give each kid $600. Well, guess what? If EA unilaterally gave each kid $600, they probably deserve $5,000. Right. So the future is an organization. It's hard. It's not easy. Because as you've got Division III girls field hockey. You've got Ohio State, where the president says we need $14 million to pay football players. So defining this is going to take some skill. I look forward to being involved in that. But it really comes down to, I think, the presidents of the university stepping up and saying, we've got these businesses. Let's get it together. Let's take care of everybody within reason, because, there is budgetary concerns. There's no doubt about it. But it's going to take a lot of work from smart people. And I'm not a proponent that there are many smart people left in that NCAA thing.
I'm probably guessing there'll be a lot of people that agree with you. Kurt, if people want to learn more about your foundation, what's the website? How can they follow you? How can they donate, more importantly?
Well, 505sports.org. 505sports.org is the website. You can go there. Our email's on there. If you're in New Mexico, it's hard to avoid me. I'm at the games. I'm on local media. I'm the guy with the funny accent, wearing the Lobo gear. 505 SBF is the Instagram. You can get through us through that, especially if you're really into the visuals. Again, and it's Sobel Solutions that is our in-house partner. For those who are like me, a little slow, Sobel is Lobos backwards. Nobody does the social media work and the level of the documentaries and the small stuff, big from TikTok to our documentaries. Nobody's as good as they are. Nobody. So check that out. And again, if you see me walking down the street, throw a rock at me. I'll talk to you.
Awesome. Kurt, you've been a great guest. I really appreciate you sharing your journey and what you're doing to help student athletes, which is what we're all about. So thank you very much.
Awesome. I look forward to talking to you again, Mark.
Okay.